This is part 4 on my series on sleep for optimal performance. In my previous videos, I went over why poor sleep leads to a number of physiological, psychological, and neurological problems. The question is, why is your sleep not as good as it could be? In this video, I review one of the main reasons for suboptimal sleep. It's an often necessary but neglected aspect of our sleep. It has to do with the circadian rhythm, or circadian rhythm disruption, and particularly the role of bright light in the mornings. I'm Dr. Chris Friesen from Friesen Performance, where I help you achieve your greatest potential by optimizing your psychology, physiology, and neurology. If you want to take your performance and productivity to the next level, you're going to need to improve your sleep. Do you notice a drop in your mood and energy levels and being more irritable in the winter months? There's a condition known as seasonal affective disorder, or SAD. This is a condition where people become more depressed in the winter months, and it's thought to be related to a lack of sunlight, especially in the mornings. But this effect on our mood and energy levels affects most of us. It's related to our 24-hour clock, which is known as the circadian rhythm. This has allowed us to survive and thrive on this planet for most of human existence. Genetically and biologically, we haven't changed much since our hunter-gatherer days. This is a period that accounts for the majority of our time on this planet. Although our biology hasn't changed, our environment has drastically changed over the past 200 years with the advent of the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution has changed the way we live and work. With it came numerous advances, such as lighting in our homes. This became commonplace about 100 years ago. Our bodies and brains rely on bright light produced by the sun as a signal to tell us when to wake up. There are other signals, such as when we eat and exercise, that also affect our circadian rhythm, but to a lesser extent than bright light. Without this light cue in the mornings, our circadian rhythm goes out of whack. Think jet lag. Bright light exposure in the morning sets off a series of hormonal and neurochemical processes that allow us to wake up in the morning. But it also helps set the time when we're going to go to sleep at night. When we wake up in darkness during the winter months, our body's natural rhythms and timing gets disrupted. This is all controlled by the master clock in our brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is located near the optic nerve, which is a nerve that connects our eyes to our brain. This is how morning exposure to bright light signals our brains to maintain our circadian rhythms, our 24-hour cycle. For example, when our eyes are exposed to bright sunlight in the morning, the neurotransmitter orexin, it's also known as hypocretin because two different labs discovered this at the same time, is released from the hypothalamus, which is at the base of our brain just below our thalamus and above our pituitary gland. And this affects how awake we feel. Our bodies are flooded with stress hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline, and our brains are flooded with neurotransmitters such as norepinephrine, dopamine, and acetylcholine. Also, when exposed to bright light, the sleep hormone melatonin stops being released. Electrically, our brains shift into a more active state. Our heart rate, blood pressure, and breathing rate also increase. Without this neurochemical cascade, we would never be able to get out of bed. So during the winter months, the amount of daylight is drastically reduced. Unfortunately, most schools and work schedules don't take this into consideration. We often end up waking up when it's still dark outside and going to bed long after the sun has gone down. You've probably noticed your moods are a bit cheerier on bright and sunny days. This is partially due to the release of a neurotransmitter known as serotonin. Serotonin tends to improve and balance our moods, mostly due to the reduction in negative emotions in general. You've probably heard of the antidepressant fluoxetine, also known as Prozac. Prozac is an SSRI, or a serotonin reuptake inhibitor, which basically increases the amount of usable serotonin in your brain. Bright light exposure in the mornings starts your body's clock and signals to your brain that in approximately 14 to 16 hours, it's time to go to sleep. In addition, it tends to improve your mood and make you feel more alert and awake in the mornings and throughout the day. If that wasn't enough, exposure to bright light in the morning helps you think and react more quickly and accurately. It also helps you pay attention better and for longer. It helps you hold more information in your mind, something known as working memory, and it improves your overall work performance. So it sounds like you get a huge boost in your performance by being exposed to bright light in the mornings. This is partially accurate. It may be more accurate to think of it this way. When we don't get exposure to the bright light that our brains and bodies were designed to receive in the mornings, we tend to underperform. In fact, if we don't maintain a consistent 24-hour cycle primed by our exposure to bright light in the mornings and lack of exposure to bright light in the evenings, something I'm going to talk about in the next video, a number of bad things happen. Our sleep becomes impaired. Our hormones go out of balance. We start to crave carbohydrates. Our energy goes down. Our cognitive abilities suffer, and we become more moody and irritable. This all makes sense. Our human ancestors woke up soon after the sun came out. They also went to bed soon after the sun went down. They didn't wear sunglasses in the morning, so they were exposed to bright light first thing in the mornings. So what does this all mean? We need bright light exposure within about 90 minutes of waking up in the mornings. Despite how bright your house lights seem, they're nowhere near as bright as the light you would get from the sun. So for example, indoor lighting produces between 100 and a maximum of about 500 lux. Lux is a measure of brightness. For comparison, light from the sun produces 10,000 to 100,000 lux, which is 20 to 1,000 times brighter than the light in your homes. Also, the lights that come off of your devices like your smartphone, your iPad, and your televisions, they don't produce enough bright light. But these do affect our sleep in the evenings, and I'll talk about that in the next video. So to use light to reset your circadian rhythm and set off the cascade of positive shifts to improve your mood, cognition, alertness, we need to expose our eyes to bright light first thing in the morning. For approximately 15 to 30 minutes, consider not wearing your sunglasses and going outside. This could be when you're commuting or walking or exercising outside. Often we can't get exposure to light from the sun within 90 minutes of waking up. This could be because you're getting up before the sun rises, like in the winter months, or you're just not able to get outside. One option for this is something called a light box. A good light box produces about 10,000 lux from about 1 or 2 feet away. Occasionally I get some pushback from people when I recommend they purchase a light box. They say it seems unnatural, but what's really unnatural is not getting exposed to bright light in the mornings or getting up in the dark. One thing to keep in mind is, whether you're getting your exposure from the sun or a light box, is that you don't look directly at the light box or the sun. This can damage your eyes. Follow the instructions provided if you purchase a light box. Although I've never suffered from seasonal affective disorder, I have noticed changes in my mood and sleep in the winter months. So about 10 years ago, I purchased a research-grade light box that I used for between 15 and 25 minutes within about 90 minutes of waking up. In line with what the research suggests, I noticed less irritability, cravings, overeating. I also noticed an improvement in my mood and also better sleep. Other things I noticed was more energy and having an easier time waking up in the mornings. So not surprisingly, I've been using it ever since. When it comes to light boxes, there's a number of options out there. The key is that it generates 10,000 lux between 1 and 2 feet away. I've used something called the Daylight Sky. This product has been used in research before. It's also easily available on Amazon. I just want to emphasize this is not a product endorsement. I'm just relaying what I personally use. I think it's worth noting how potent the effect of light exposure in the mornings is. It's highly effective in treating seasonal affective disorder, and it's actually the treatment of choice above antidepressant medication. Also, antidepressants take between 2 and 6 weeks to kick in, whereas bright light exposure takes only 5 to 7 days, and it's also more effective. For people who don't have seasonal affective disorder, but notice a change in mood and energy during the winter months, research has found that bright light exposure treatment has been highly effective. There are some caveats. If you've been diagnosed with bipolar disorder or what used to be called manic depression, bright light treatment has been shown in research to set off manic and hypomanic episodes, so you have to be careful. Some experts believe it's better to get the bright light exposure in the middle of the day if this is a problem you experience. But talk to your treating physician before starting light exposure treatment. Also, for those of you who don't have problems falling asleep at night, but you find that you're waking up too early in the morning, what's known as terminal insomnia, it's often better to get your bright light exposure later in the day or into the evening. This will shift your circadian rhythm to be more in line with your preferred schedule. Also, for those of you who have skin or eye conditions that make you sensitive to bright light, consult your physician before starting any light therapy. So if you can't shift your schedule to live and work in line with the rise and fall of the sun, consider getting light exposure within 90 minutes of waking up, either from the sun or from a light box. If you're finding these videos on sleep interesting, I highly recommend you check out Dr. Matthew Walker's book, Why We Sleep. So are you ready to take control of your circadian rhythm? In my next video, I'm going to review the negative effect of light exposure in the evenings. I'm also going to review the role of melatonin and caffeine and how these affect your sleep. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you want to get alerted for upcoming videos, hit the subscribe button as well. Share with friends or family that you think may benefit. Until next time, keep moving forward.